Hello! In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the new features in the latest FlexiProject 2026.05 release. The major change here is a rebuilt budget. With that in mind, let's head over to the System Settings. Under the Budget tab, a new Budget Attributes section has been introduced. Here, we can define any custom attributes for a budget line item. The old legacy fixed attributes have been successfully migrated to these new attributes. This includes cost centers, expense types, CapEx, OpEx, vendor, and document number. All legacy values have been maintained and converted into either single select dropdowns or text fields. New attributes can be defined in a similar way to project attributes. The available types include text fields, single select lists, multi-select lists, numbers, dates, and functions. With the function attribute type, you can perform mathematical operations on budget item amounts, numbers, and dates. I will now present a few examples of the created budget attributes. I have created a numeric field for entering the budget item's tax rate. The field name specifies that the value is in %. As it is an integer-based numeric field, no decimal places are provided. There is also a new option for numeric budget attributes, aggregating values. With a budget tree structure, you can choose to aggregate values by cost groups or across the entire project. For the VAT rate, summation is not necessary, so I will select no aggregation for the aggregation option. Having defined the VAT rate, we can now calculate the VAT amount. I'll add a new attribute called VAT amount. This time, I am choosing a function type attribute to create the calculations. There is also a space to provide a description. The description works similarly to project attributes. If I enter one, it will be visible where the attribute is filled out. I will enter a sample description for the VAT amount here. I will demonstrate how this description appears later on. In the formula field, drag and drop the elements from the right pane to build the expression. Available options include the item amount, other numeric or date budget attributes, and mathematical operators. We can also enter our own numeric values, a specific date, or a dynamic today date. To calculate the VAT amount, I drag the item amount and multiply it by the VAT rate. In this case, the VAT is entered as a whole number, like 23, for example, rather than a decimal. We can see a preview of the calculation at the bottom, so we need to either divide the result by 100 or multiply it by 100th. I'll go with the second option and enter a custom value. This ensures the VAT amount is calculated correctly. This attribute will be read-only. It will be calculated automatically based on variables such as the item amount and the VAT rate. Below, we define whether the result should be returned as a numeric attribute or a date attribute. If we are performing operations on dates, for example, the invoice date plus 14 days for payment, we then return a date. This way, we can calculate the payment date. In the case of the VAT amount, we return a number. For numbers, we can define the decimal precision. I will leave it at 0 here. You can also choose whether to aggregate values by cost groups and across the entire project. Since I want to display the total VAT amount for the whole project, I am selecting Total here. Let's save it. Now let's also add the gross amount. This is how we use a function type attribute. I click Add New Attribute and enter the name. And I define the type as a function type attribute. I drag the budget item amount and multiply it by 1. Plus the VAT rate divided by 100. We receive the result as a numeric attribute. We will leave the decimal precision at 0 decimal places here, and we will want to aggregate the results. This way, we will have the gross amount calculated. Let's add a different kind of attribute, for example, funding. I am adding a new attribute. This time, we will choose a single select list. We will enter the name. And we will add the select options. Own funds. And grants. We can define colors for each of these options. Save changes. Let's head over to the project to check out the results. Unlike the schedule, there is no need to manually activate these columns for the project. They are available immediately. The columns menu now displays the VAT amount, gross amount, and funding. The VAT data had already been populated earlier. Let's add the VAT amount, funding, and gross amount. As you can see, after populating the VAT rate, both the VAT amount and the gross amount were automatically computed. When I change the VAT rate to 8, the value updates automatically as well. Under Funding, we have our custom drop-down menu, which allows us to filter by options like Own Funds. By using filters and selecting the More option, we can filter out only the items that have those specific own funds. Let's go to a budget item. In the budget item details, we will have access to all the project attributes that were defined in the system settings. Next to the VAT attribute, we can see the description that was added. Hovering over the icon will display the content of the description. For attributes like the VAT amount or the gross amount, the values will appear automatically and will not be available for editing. Since these attributes have aggregation enabled, we can see the total VAT amount for the project as well as the gross amount for the entire project. Let me show you one more thing. In the system settings, we can define the display order of these attributes. If I wanted the VAT rate, the VAT amount to be first, followed by the VAT rate, and finally the gross amount, you can simply change the order of the attributes using drag and drop. I'm going back to the project. The order defined in the budget will be maintained in the budget item details. Budget attributes will also be available in project templates. If we define a budget attribute in a template, they will carry over to the project. It will also work the other way around. When we save a project as a template, the budget attributes will be carried over from the project. We will also be able to generate reports and search for items based on these financial attributes. This option will be available in the Budget Line Items report. I will have this option available when applying filters, as well as for displaying columns in the table. Another change in our application is the overhaul of graphical charts. I will show this using a project portfolio as an example. The change applies to all places where graphical charts are available. They are available in project portfolios, project reports, and project reviews. It is the same module. The first change concerns the overhaul of chart definition itself. Previously, in the data range, we had the option to select statuses, managers, health, or project attributes. This showed the number of assigned statuses, managers, and so on. Now, all these elements appear under the Projects option. They will count the number of projects. Additionally, an option for numeric fields and function type fields has appeared, but more on that in a moment. If we selected the Projects option, which was above, all the old options have been moved to grouping. Here we show, for example, the number of projects by specific statuses, or the number of projects by specific workspaces. We can also show the number of projects by our custom project attributes drop-down lists, for example, by priority or project category. The second thing that appeared in this release is the ability to filter widgets. A frequently reported need was, for instance, filtering out archived projects. Now we have the ability to define custom filters, and there are quite a few of them. For example, excluding exactly those archived projects. Here we don't happen to have any archived projects, but we can also limit the data we display. The charts will update in real time. For example, we only want to show projects in the pending and in progress statuses. I'm adding a new project status filter. I select the pending and in progress options. Filters can be applied to all types of charts. An additionally good example is the filter in the risk matrix. Previously, the matrix showed all risks. Now we can exclude, for example, closed risks from this matrix. This way, we add the risk status filters, show identified and active without showing the closed ones. A filter saved this way will always remember and show the risks here without the closed ones. The final change to the widgets is the ability to create summary charts for numeric project attributes. This also works for function type attributes. On the project, I created a numeric attribute power in megawatts with 1 decimal place. These are just examples. For these projects, power doesn't quite fit contextually. We can now see the summary value for the project. We create a new widget, and in the RADA range, we select the option for the given numeric attribute, which is power. We specify how we would like to display this chart, meaning as a pie chart or a bar chart. And in this way, I will see how much summary power in megawatts I have in individual project statuses. We can also change the distribution by other properties and our custom drop-down lists, for example, by priorities or by workspaces. We can also select a counter. This way, we will obtain the total number of megawatts for the entire project portfolio. We can also, of course, apply filters here. The next change concerns resources. Let's go to the system settings. Up until now, whenever we had an allocation on a task, it functioned in a very specific way. Whenever you added a user, the total allocation was automatically split equally among all of the users. I would like to demonstrate this for you with a practical example. Let's go ahead and head over to a project. I am adding a new task. Let's say it lasts from May 25th to the end of June. In total, that's 27 days. Let's shorten it to 25. The user is supposed to spend 100 hours on this task. I will display the allocation column. I enter the value of 100 hours. If I assign one user to the task, then the 100 hours are assigned to them. The change in the mechanism applies to situations where we assign more than one user. If I were to assign a second person, for example, Olivia, the 100 hours will be divided equally between the users. If we want to avoid this behavior, in the system settings we need to change the option to Owner Duration Priority. When adding new task owners, the total workload will not be divided equally among them, and a new user added to the task as owner will have 0 hours allocated. I will add Daniel here. This way, Daniel will have 0 hours. If I change his value to 30 hours, this way we will have 130 hours. When removing such a user from the task, one will also be removed from the task. His workload will be removed. In connection with the resource module overhaul, there have also been other improvements. The first of them is a single unified window for workload allocation. Previously, we had 2 available tabs here: Allocation and Availability. Now we have one unified screen. From this level, we can edit values for specific days of the week. Daily values or monthly values. We can, for example, give a user 20 hours in May and give them 30 hours in June. Then the total workload will remain the same, but it will have a completely different breakdown. Another change concerns the ability to break down the workload for a department. I will add a new task here. I will also enter 100 hours in the task, and this task will be in the same dates from May 25th to June 26th. This time, I will not assign an owner, but I will assign the department itself. Having assigned a department, previously there was no such option. Now we will also be able to break down the allocation by months for the department itself. So in May, I will say 10 hours, and in June, I will say 90 hours. Another change will concern keeping the distribution among users. If we have owners assigned here or different departments, for example, sales and IT, I can say that these 100 hours will be distributed in such a way that 20 hours will be assigned to Dominic, 60 for Olivia. If we have owners assigned here or different departments. Previously, before this release, when changing dates of such a task, for example, to June 1st, this proportion between users and departments was removed. Now it is maintained. Another change concerns the Resources tab. The previously available option to show unincluded projects has been moved under the Settings button. We have also introduced a new configuration option that allows you to view deleted users directly within this specific interface. However, please be aware that by default, these deleted user accounts will remain completely hidden from your view. Furthermore, we have incorporated a brand new tab that displays the comprehensive total allocation for any selected unit of time you choose. If we are in the daily view, then for the entire month we will have shown the summary value of allocated hours for users, but also for the department. The last change related to resources allows defining different availability for users. By default, a user has availability from Monday to Friday for 8 hours a day. If we wanted to make an update that a user will work part-time from June to the end of the year, then entering the value in the default availability causes data loss in historical projects. That is why we are adding a new availability from the beginning of June to the end of the year. We say that the person will work for 4. That is why we are adding a new availability from the beginning of June to the end of the year. We note that the person will work for 4 hours. This will have a higher priority over the default availability, and in the period from June 1st to December 31st, the maximum hours within which an overallocation will be shown will amount to 4 hours for the user. The next change concerns Workspaces. An option has appeared in portfolios and project overviews to display the workspace column from which a given project originates. We will also be able to filter the project list by workspaces, and when adding projects to a portfolio or review, information about the workspace will be visible. There is also option to filter the project list. If you have only one workspace defined in the system, it will not be visible here. The option will also be available for charts. So when it comes to the number of projects, we will be able to show the breakdown by workspaces. The same applies to numeric values. The next change concerns the ability to require acceptance path. Let's go to the system settings. By default, the option to require an acceptance path will be disabled. When enabled, there will no longer be an option to independently accept a project charter, plan, schedule, or budget without passing it through the acceptance path. With this option disabled, let's see how it looks on a project. I'll go to the Project Charter tab and add a new project charter. When sending it for approval, I no longer have the option to bypass the acceptance path. The next change concerns the ability to export the project charter together with the acceptance path. Once a document has been approved, it becomes possible to export it along with the acceptance path. This document will display the approvers, acceptance dates, and their comments. It is also possible to export the document without the acceptance path, as was previously the case. The next change concerns the enhancement of the acceptance window. When sending a document for acceptance, we now have the option to paste a link as well as an image in the acceptance window. These will also be displayed later in the exported document. Another minor change is the ability to define a custom order of schedule attributes. This works similarly to budget items. I only have 2 attributes here, so I'll add a new text attribute as well. Using drag and drop, we can change the order of these attributes, and they will be displayed in the schedule item details according to that order. The next change is the migration of the project number. It has now been migrated to a project attribute, so the project number will appear as a short text field. If you don't use this project number functionality, you can remove it. If you wish, you can also check the option to make it visible on the project list, and we will then be able to see the project number on the project list. This project number attribute will work the same way as other project attributes. The second to last change concerns the mobile application. I'm unable to demonstrate it here, so I'll just describe it. In the mobile application, the ability to report work time has been added, just as in the system. To report work time from the Tasks tab, we will need to enter the time spent on the task, the date, and a comment. The last change concerns the Payments tab, which I also don't have configured here. A new additional data field, or additional invoice information, has been added, where you can enter, for example, the person approving the document. Once the invoice is generated in the next billing period, the information from this field will be visible on the invoice. That's all for this release. Thank you for your attention. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up.